Welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast, where each episode brings you compelling conversations and stories designed to entertain, enlighten, and encourage. And now here's your host, Brian Sexton.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. I am intentionally encouraged when I see people doing business the right way. And for the last 15 years, Damon Burton and his team at SEO National have done just that. Now you might say, Brian, what can they do for me in my business? I'm going to tell you what they can do for you. They can help you understand search engine optimization. There are a lot of players out there in the marketplace, but you want a team of people that are going to be dedicated to working with you and helping you to understand search engine optimization and how you can show up higher on search engines so that you can bring more revenue into your business. Damon and his team are full of integrity, honesty, decency, and trust. And if that's important to you and that encourages you, I would encourage you to give them a call today at 855-736-6285 or go to SEOnational.com and get a free quote and tell them you heard about it on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Get ready for a dynamite conversation coming up right now on the Intentional Encourager podcast. And welcome into the Intentional Encourager podcast. I'm your host, Brian Sexton. Thank you for joining us again today. I have got a guy. Listen, if you catch me staring a little bit at this guy's beard, he has got, if you're watching on YouTube, my man Remy Keene has got a righteous beard going on. And I mean, it is a righteous beard, but you can check him out. You can find his podcast called the On My Mind podcast, as I play with a couple of the video settings here, but you can find him right here, right now on the, because I want to see what's on his mind today. You can find him right here, right now on the Intentional Encourager podcast, and that is Remy Keene. Remy, how you doing, man?
I'm really well. How are you?
I am doing well here as I'm making some in-game adjustments, so to speak here. So
absolutely.
Hey, Remy, I always like to start every podcast this way. Take me through the last couple of years, because everybody has got a different journey that they've walked the last couple of years around this pandemic that, thank God, is over with. We don't have to deal with any of this crap anymore. But what's the biggest thing that you learned in the last couple of years that's going to carry you forward in the next several years?
Wow. Yeah, as you said, I mean, it was a big impact to all of us. I feel like no one walked away from that like, oh, that's normal. You know, that's just part of life and how it went. So really disrupt things, right? It disrupted things that it made you maybe even check your own like motives and your own drives, and like what really drives me is, am I passionate about this? And you know, you were maybe challenged to continue doing the good practices that you have in your life, and that's one thing I would say I was really challenged to continue things that I enjoyed and maybe let go of some of the things I didn't enjoy. So I would say especially like going to church, of course, it's like there was a while there where we couldn't, and I feel like a lot of people might have like been like, oh, do I even have to go back now, things like that. But I was like, no, I need community. I need to be linked together with people, and that's a lot of what I share on the podcast too. It's like, how can we impact others for good by keeping good things on our minds, so we share what's on our mind, which is good, with those around us. And the good things, of course, for me are my relationship with Jesus, my relationships with other people that ultimately are good because of how much, you know, God impacts me. So yeah, it was shocking, like being sent home, work from home. One thing I would say that was really shocking is like I kind of became unstable in my job. I work a full-time job outside of the podcast, and there was a time there where I was like maybe on the verge of a mental breakdown. And it's just because everything changed and I wasn't able to be used to it again. But what do I believe? What do I believe is valuable? And let's keep those things active and let's keep going after those things. And so with new vigor and with new focus, I'm like, I'm a church going happy individual, and I want to keep it that way.
I love that, what you said there. In Jeremy, I think a lot of people were there, right? I think a lot of people were, how do we deal with all of this stuff? How do we deal with working from home? And for me, that's how the Intentional Encourager podcast got started. Was, I had a lot of extra time, and it's like, okay, well, now I can do this podcast, and it's cool and it's great and things like that. But not everybody's in that boat. For you, how valuable was your podcast in kind of helping you keep things above board and having that outlet to kind of release the emotions that you were feeling?
Yeah. It was super impactful. Not only did I have like an outlet for all of the emotion and all of the things, but I was able to decide to be that voice of wisdom and not a voice of like, oh, let's be scared about what's coming, or let's worry, let's like, what's that really going to profit us? So I was like, God, use me as someone who can inspire others to make a decision to keep the good things on their mind. Because even through all of that we all had to face and go through, there were so many good things that came from it, like more time with family, more time with our very close loved ones. Like I have two sons and a wife, and we all became really knit together. And my sons are 3 and 4, so they're like born during right before.
No wonder you've got no hair, man. No wonder that hair is gone. Like I said, I have done my due diligence. I am the father of a 22-year-old son, so
all right.
But again, I had way more hair years ago when he was born than I do now. But
yeah.
So let me ask you this. Everybody talks about the resiliency of kids.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from your kids during this time?
I mean, they were ready to just roll with the punches. They were not even really thrown off course by it. They were ready to just move along, take the next step, whatever it was. It's like, oh, we have to go do this today. Okay, let's go, Daddy. I mean, that's what I never once upset that we had to maybe change something up. And for me, just seeing that, I was like, oh man, I need to be maybe inspired by what I'm seeing happen right here.
No, and you know what, man? If you're watching on YouTube, my man's got a rocking background. It's not a virtual background by any stretch of the. I see fun. It's like Romper Room, man. If I took a little lollipop kind of thing, man, and I'm probably dating myself with that. It's like I see Funko Pops and I see a lightsaber and I see this. That to me is really cool. And here's the thing, Jeremy. There's a lot of people that find encouragement from the things around them that make them happy. I gotta ask you, man. I love that background. If you're watching on YouTube, my man's got it going on here. What about that virtual background encourages you and makes you happy?
Oh man, I love it. It's just, it really is just all the things I enjoy, and like not even all of my collection. It's overflowed into the rest of my house, which my wife is so nice to let overflow. But yeah, I mean, you see everything up there from Doctor Who to comic books to everything. I just enjoy pop culture so much because like the fact that people want to have like a fantasy and an imagination and find joy in that. I believe that God gave us that as a gift. I mean, He gave us that, and our imaginations go so far. But then, like when you think about it, it's like God says, "You can't even imagine the things I have for you," and I'm like, we can imagine some pretty great stuff. Like,
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. Prices are going up by the day. We've got to find ways to increase our household revenue. Now, a couple ways you could do that is, one, you could go and ask your boss for a raise. But if that doesn't work, I've got another way for you. It's my friend Joe Hart's program called Products for Profit. Joe's been a guest here on the Intentional Encourager podcast and told his story about how learning retail arbitrage changed his life, and he's been helping thousands of people change theirs. Now, retail arbitrage is simply this. It's taking a product and buying it and then reselling it online for a higher price, and you keep the profits. And guess what? Amazon and Walmart use third-party resellers every day to fulfill their customer orders. I want you to go to productsforprofit.com or productsforprofit.carrd.co. Get connected to Joe's team. Tell him you heard about it on the Intentional Encourager podcast and start making money today with Products for Profit. And now let's get back to more great conversation on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
Imagination and find joy in that. I believe that God gave us that as a gift. I mean, He gave us that, and our imaginations go so far. But then, like when you think about it, it's like God says, "You can't even imagine the things I have for you." And I'm like, we can imagine some pretty great stuff, like some pretty cool stuff. And He's like, you can't even imagine how awesome life can be with Him. And so it's like, that, is just a reminder of, I love all that stuff. I collect it. I enjoy it. But I'm like, man, all the cool stuff that you can relate to someone about, and then eventually just build relationships.
Now, one of those things that I see, Jeremy, looking over your left shoulder there, it looks like a Funko Pop with and I'm getting, and I could be dead wrong here.
Okay.
That's okay. So over your left shoulder, I see a Funko Pop that looks like a football helmet on it.
This one?
It looks like there's one that's a football helmet, maybe a Dallas Cowboys helmet. And I could be wrong there.
I think you might be. I don't know which
Why
one
I was, because the one Funko Pop there's two Funko Pops that I really would like to have. It'd be pretty cool.
Okay.
I would either like to have a Michael Scott Funko Pop or a Joe Burrow Funko Pop.
Okay. I do have a Michael Scott Funko Pop.
Fabulous. I would love to see it, man. That's awesome. See, we're just doing stuff on the fly here on the Intentional Encourager podcast. This is fun. This is so fun because, again, it is, this is what encourages. Listen, sometimes people are encouraged by the things around them.
Okay.
My man is producing. If you're listening to this if you're listening to it, he is producing a Michael Scott. Here it is, the Michael Scott. Oh my,
Michael Scarn, even from.
Oh no, that is glorious.
And then I also have Michael Scott as Classy Santa.
Yes, yes, fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah, I either want a Michael Scott or a Joe Burrow Funko Pop.
There you go.
And for those of you that aren't aware, Joe Burrow is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. So, absolutely. Let me ask you something. And I don't want to get into, because, again, my son's got a few Funko Pops that really resonate with him. To you, what's the beauty to you of collecting things? What is the fascination, if you will, to the collection? Because you just said a minute ago, it's like, well, it's taken over parts of the house. and when I asked you about that, I saw them. For those of you watching on YouTube, I saw a change in your face when I mentioned some of that stuff. So what to you about collecting just brings you joy?
Well, I would say one, collecting things that mean something or that have, I mean, like Michael Scott, for instance. One of my favorite things about that is my wife is not really a comedy lover of all of the comedies that I listen to and partake in or watch, but The Office alone, we love it. We've watched it probably 9 times all the way through, and it's just one of those things. So every little thing, I love art. I love the way that people express themselves through it, and just appreciating that, bringing it into my home, because I've identified with it in some way and then someone else has. If you're at all feeling down and then you see how awesome of a Superman poster you have on your wall, or how awesome of a whatever it is that sparks your joy, I believe if it can encourage you to really just maybe leave with a better attitude the situation that you just walked out of, then it's going to inspire you to maybe make a better decision with how you walk out the next choices you make.
When I get the chance to come on the On My Mind podcast,
yes,
I'm going to wear. I was working in Ithaca, New York, here not so long ago.
Ithaca, all right.
Yes, and because of Andy Bernard, I had to buy a Cornell hat and T-shirt. So I need to wear the Cornell hat and T-shirt that I bought.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
there is a famous episode of The Office where Dwight is actually trying to recruit students for Cornell University, and he and Andy kind of have a Cornell battle. Yep. So Dwight's wearing a Cornell sweatshirt. It's a pretty classic episode of The Office. All right, I got to ask you this. Favorite episode of The Office?
Oh, there's so many episodes that are my favorite. I really like the cringy episodes. Like there's Dinner Party and Scott's Tots. Those are like the worst of the worst. But I love them because it's like in no other context would I feel so like hysterically wanting to laugh at such an awful moment in all of those people's lives. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
So instead of printer cartridges, instead of scholarships, you get printer cartridges.
Right. Or laptop batteries.
Yes.
Not even an actual laptop.
Oh, that's right. Laptop batteries. Yes.
Right. And it's like, I'm just surprised at the fact that you can just laugh at maybe his misfortune, their misfortune, or just the fact that he gets himself into some of the craziest sort of situations. And it's
okay, so I got to ask you this. In the Dinner Party episode,
mm-hmm.
the focal point of the room is
it depends on which room, but maybe the glass door that is not there.
The plasma TV.
Oh,
yeah, and then the neon St. Pauli's
comes out.
Yes, and the neon St. Pauli's girl that he turns on for ambiance.
Yeah.
Yes,
the ambiance.
All right, if I say
it goes
this
in Ryan's closet.
Yes, right.
Later.
Yes, it goes in Ryan's closet later. All right. If I say, "Hey, Mr. Scott, what you gonna do?"
What you gonna do? Make our dreams come true.
Yes.
Yep.
My favorite episode, the one that gets me every time, is Fixing Dwight.
Okay.
They're in the conference room, and it's Dwight and Jim and Michael. and they're role playing.
Bill Buttlicker?
My son has my name in his phone as Mr. William M. Buttlicker.
That's
yes, yes. Yes. A micro form of management. What would you call that, Jim? Micromanagement. Boom. We're huge fans of The Office. Okay, I've gone completely off script. I don't care. This is fun.
It's okay.
Let me
It's
ask
fun.
you this. Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. You know, dreams are powerful pieces of intentional encouragement. We all have them. If you're a business owner, you've probably always dreamed of taking your sales to levels you've never seen before. I've got a guy that can help you with that. His name is Brad Norwood. My good buddy Brad has been on the Intentional Encourager podcast as a guest before, and he is a dream specialist. His company, Dream It Pro, offers incentive packages to travel to places such as the Masters, Kentucky Derby, the Super Bowl, even exotic places that you've always wanted to take your team, but you just didn't know how to do it. Brad's your guy. And oh, by the way, Brad's a certified bucket list coach, so he can help your team members achieve their personal dreams as well. I want you to go to www.dreamitpro.com and find out more, or call him directly at 479-466-6907. And by the way, tell him you heard it on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Let's get back to more great conversation here on the Intentional Encourager podcast. The one character from The Office, or the one person from The Office you'd love to meet in person?
Oh, I love to meet in person. Well, gosh, there's so many, but probably gonna say Rainn Wilson, Dwight. Yeah, he's just incredible, and like so down to earth, and like anything, he's just really approachable. And like just seeing him in like interviews and just other things after The Office, he's still really encouraged by that, but also just takes other avenues of just trying to get himself out there. And like he just seems really like a person I would want to pick their brain about how they think about the world and things. And I think, yeah, he would be great. John
Krasinski's that guy for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I love what John Krasinski did during the pandemic with Some Good News.
Yeah.
And you know what amazes me about that cast is they're all really tight with each other.
It's true.
Like they are really, really super close with each other. And so that's awesome. The Office. So let me ask you this.
Sure.
So when you think about your podcast, the On My Mind podcast, what's the one thing, I'm going to pivot here for just a couple of minutes.
Sure.
When you think about your podcast, the On My Mind podcast, what's the one thing that surprises you the most about it?
Well, I would honestly say I never thought that I would want to record my voice, because I feel like nobody likes the sound of their own voice on a recording, but except for those people with beautiful voices, kind of like yourself. But I would say that I would send that out to the world. Absolutely. That I would send that out to the world for other people to just be encouraged by it. The magnitude of the fact that I know my podcast has been listened to in over 47 countries and things like that. It's like, I never would have thought that I would have that impact with my voice alone. And it's like that just inspires me to make sure that what I do with the podcast is encourage people to take every opportunity in each day to fix something, that maybe the way you see something is different than the way it should be. And like originally, the On My Mind podcast, it kind of sounds like I talk about what's on my mind, right? originally that was what it was gonna be. But then I found that I would just talk about how we could impact others for good. And if we keep good thoughts and good things like scripture and awesome things on our mind, we can then impact those around us for good. So that is the ultimate surprise that I have, is that my voice can somehow impact all these people, and I really think it's by the grace of God that I can do it.
Well, I love that because again, what I find with the Intentional Encourager podcast is, one, you never know who's listening. I think I don't think I've gotten people to listen in 47 counties in West Virginia, let alone 47 countries.
Yeah.
But no, Jeremy, it's the concept of you can't pour into somebody from an empty bucket.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's what you feed your mind. It's how you encourage your mind. It's how you keep your mind flowing in the right direction. For you, do you feel like it's a challenge to continue to come up with those topics that feed the mind that eventually work their way to the heart and spirit?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I thought it was going to be. I thought that I was like, I might run out of stuff to talk about. But no, not anymore, because how often I see an opportunity that either I myself have to maybe show some extra love to someone, or that I see someone else might have an opportunity to maybe fix the way they approach that. I then can turn that into a whole episode of how we can have the best intentions in a situation, but maybe our approach was off. So if we get 1% better each time we approach a situation, then we're going to eventually become a master at that, right? And loving others is something I feel we're called to do. So if we want to encourage others and build them up and inspire them to do good, then we should ourselves do good to them. It's like, don't do it expecting them to do good back to you, because then you're expecting like some reward. But if you just do it because that's who you are, it will eventually come back to you, because your kindness will then impact that person, person, and then another person's going to have a better day because that kindness was moved forward, and then they're going to have an interaction with you, and maybe they'll be in a better mood because you impacted someone else with kindness. So
well,
it's so impactful.
Yeah, and it really is about lightening the load, right? And it's really about, you know, and I said this the other day on social media. You don't accidentally encourage somebody. Like, oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to encourage you today. Sorry about that. My bad. You know. But you're right. It is. Everybody wants the home run ball, so to speak. Everybody wants the big thing, the big play, things like that. And you know, it's not really the huge things that make the biggest impact, but rather a lot of times it's the smallest things. You talk about 1% better. Where did that come from in your mind of thinking of that in that particular term?
So basically I was like, you know, we always dealt with percents in school. It's like your percent of average grade. And then now in my work, we get a percent to a goal. So it's like there's so many numbers that just try to quantify our performance and things like that. But I was like, what if I didn't ask you for 30%? What if I didn't ask you for 5%? What if I asked you for just 1%? If you could make it 1% better each time, it's not a huge challenge. It's not like, whoa, that's a big scary number. It's like, 1? Yeah, I can do 1. And then next time, 1 again. And then ultimately it's going to add up to a big number, but it's going to be an easier journey because it's not so seemingly insurmountable.
I thought of that old song, and it's a I think it's an old rock song. It's like, one is the loneliest. I mean, but you're right. It's small increments trying to get to bigger things. It's like I heard somebody say one time, you eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Right.
And again, I think that's brilliant. Man, I can't wait for part 2 as we wrap up this portion of the Intentional Encourager podcast. Jeremy, tell folks where they can connect with you, where they can find you, where they can find the On My Mind podcast. How can folks get connected with you?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm on YouTube and all of the podcast platforms. If you just search for the On My Mind podcast with Remy Keene, that's RemyKeene. You can also visit the website, which is theonmymindpodcast.com. I'm on most social media. I have a Twitter, a Facebook, and a TikTok. Check out the TikTok. But at On My Mind Pods with an S is where you can find me there. But yeah, I'm gonna absolutely look forward to anyone who wants to have just a quick encouraging moment to their day, to stop on by and just see if you don't find some encouragement there.
Man, that is so cool. And again, I would say if you want to have a deep dive on The Office, this is your guy. This is your guy.
Anytime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jeremy Keene, this has been great. Can't wait for the second part where you dive into your story. And, man, I want to thank you for joining me today on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
My pleasure.
My thanks as always to producer Bryce Sexton and technical advisor Matt Means. And of course, the ultimate thanks goes to the Lord Jesus Christ, who provides intentional encouragement every day through his word. If you're not subscribed to the Intentional Encourager podcast, hit the subscribe button wherever you get podcasts so you don't miss an exciting episode where you can get encouraged and stay encouraged. And remember, anyone, anywhere, at any time, any place can be an intentional encourager.